Have you ever heard a sound in your house that you just couldn't explain? That low, distant noise that seems to come from inside the walls, like something alive, breathing behind the paint. I used to laugh at stories like that. I'd scroll through late-night Reddit threads, reading about people who found hidden rooms, strange basements, sealed doors. I thought it was all just urban legends, until it happened to me. One night, around 2:43 a.m., I woke up to a slow, rhythmic thump echoing through the plaster behind my bed. It wasn't the pipes, it wasn't the wind. It sounded like someone knocking. At first, I tried to ignore it. You know that feeling when your brain tries to rationalize everything? It's the house settling, I told myself. But the knocking returned the next night. Same hour, same rhythm, just a little louder. I pressed my ear against the wall, and my heart froze. There was something moving back there. The sound wasn't random. It had a pattern. 3 knocks, pause, then 2, like a code. My skin crawled. The more I listened, the clearer it became. This wasn't in my imagination. There was something behind that wall. I turned on my phone flashlight, the weak beam slicing through the darkness of my room. The wallpaper shimmered faintly, uneven, like it was hiding a scar underneath. For the first time, I noticed a faint crack running vertically from the ceiling to the floor, perfectly straight, like a door sealed long ago. My mind raced. Why would there be a door here? I had lived in this apartment for 6 years, and never once had I questioned that wall. But now, with that sound still echoing in my chest, it felt like it was calling me. Over the next few days, the noise became my obsession. I recorded it, measured the timing, compared it to old house blueprints I found online. The layout didn't make sense. There shouldn't be any space behind that wall. It was supposed to be solid. But when I tapped on the plaster, it sounded hollow. Every instinct told me to stop, to forget about it. But curiosity has a way of poisoning reason. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the sound in my head, that rhythm, 3 knocks, pause, 2. It felt like someone trying to talk. Then on the 4th night, the pattern changed. Instead of knocks, it was scraping, slow, dragging, metallic, like nails against wood. The air in the room grew colder, heavy, almost charged. I swear I could feel it breathing behind the wall. I grabbed a hammer, not even thinking, just acting, desperate to prove that I wasn't losing my mind. The first strike sent a cloud of white dust into the air, and with each hit, the sound on the other side grew louder, closer, angrier. I should have stopped right there, but I didn't, because when the plaster finally cracked open and the beam of my flashlight slipped through the hole, what I saw wasn't a pipe or an old crawl space. It was something else entirely, something I can't explain, something that changed everything I thought I knew about this house, about myself. And it all started with that simple, impossible sound, the one that still echoes in my head every night. And the strangest part, that wasn't the first time I'd heard it. If you've ever felt that same chill, that unexplainable feeling that someone or something might be just beyond the wall, then you already know what I'm talking about. It's that strange instinct that tells you not to look, not to listen, but somehow you can't help it. Maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's fear, or maybe, deep down, we all want to know what's really hiding in the dark corners of our homes and our minds. Before we go deeper into what I found behind that wall, I want you to do something for me. If this story already gave you that uneasy feeling, that heartbeat that gets faster when the lights go out, hit the like button. It might seem small, but it helps me keep telling these true, eerie stories that most people are too afraid to share. Every like shows that there are others out there who feel the same, who've heard things they couldn't explain, seen things they couldn't forget. And if you've ever experienced something like this, a sound, a shadow, or that strange sense that you weren't alone, I want you to share it in the comments. Tell me what happened. I read every single one, And trust me, you're not crazy. These stories connect us. They remind us that the unknown isn't as far away as we think. Sometimes it's right behind the wall. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. What you're about to see goes far beyond one strange noise or one hidden room. There's a reason that wall was sealed, and by the end of this story, you'll understand why. So hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what comes next will make you question every sound you hear tonight. I remember standing there covered in dust, staring at that cracked section of the wall like it had just taken a breath. My flashlight trembled in my hand, the narrow beam shaking across old paint and uneven plaster. The sound had stopped completely, not a single creak or whisper left, but somehow the silence was worse. It felt alive, like the house was listening to me, waiting for my next move. My throat was dry, my pulse pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. For a moment I thought I saw the wallpaper ripple again, like something underneath had shifted, reacting to me. That was the first time I truly felt fear in my own home. Real fear. The kind that doesn't shout or chase you, but just stands there unseen, breathing next to you. I wanted to step back, to pretend none of this was happening, but curiosity had already taken control. You know that moment when you realize you've crossed a line, when turning back is no longer an option. That's exactly how it felt. The hammer was still in my hand, heavier now, as if the weight of what I was about to uncover pressed against it. I knelt closer, feeling the cool air seeping from the cracks, colder than the rest of the room. My skin prickled instantly. I whispered something to myself, maybe a prayer, or maybe just a weak attempt to hear my own voice over the silence. Then I hit the wall again. Harder this time. The plaster gave way, splitting open with a dull, hollow sound. Behind it wasn't wood or insulation. It was emptiness, a black void that swallowed the light. I leaned in, shining my flashlight through the hole, and the beam disappeared as if it had been absorbed by the darkness itself. No reflection, no depth, just an endless black space. I pushed my hand through the opening, my fingers brushing against something cold and smooth, metal maybe, then something else, fabric. The scent that came out was old, damp and strangely familiar, like the attic in my childhood home after years of being sealed away. My heart skipped. This wasn't just a hidden crawl space. Someone had built this deliberately. Someone had sealed it. For a reason. I widened the hole enough to look inside. That's when I saw it, a corner of a room that shouldn't exist. The walls were made of the same faded plaster, but everything inside was untouched, frozen in time. A small table, a wooden chair, a broken mirror leaning against the far wall. The mirror's surface was cracked, but I could still see my reflection, faint, distorted. For a second, it didn't even look like me. My face was pale, my eyes darker than I remembered. I blinked, and it looked normal again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside that mirror had blinked after me. I climbed through the opening, careful not to cut myself on the broken edges. The air inside was heavy and still, as if it hadn't been disturbed in decades. Dust floated like fine mist in the beam of my flashlight. I could hear my own breathing louder than ever, short, uneven, anxious. On the table lay a single object, an old photograph. It was covered in grime, but when I wiped it clean, my stomach turned. It was me, not as I am now, but as a child. I was sitting on that same chair, in this same room, smiling next to someone whose face was completely burned out by time, leaving only a silhouette. How could that be possible? I didn't remember this place. I didn't remember that picture being taken. And yet, something deep inside me felt an eerie familiarity, a sense of déjà vu that made my chest tighten. My flashlight flickered for a split second, and I thought I saw movement in the reflection of the mirror behind me. A faint shape. Maybe just dust. Maybe not. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. Just the mirror. Cracked and still. That's when I heard it again. The knocking. But this time, it wasn't behind me. It was coming from inside the wall I had just broken through. The same wall I had entered from. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to climb back through the hole and never return. But something in that sound kept me there. The rhythm had changed again, slower, deeper, almost like a heartbeat. My own breath matched it without realizing. I felt drawn to it, hypnotized, as if the house itself was pulling me closer to something it wanted me to see. And in that moment I realized maybe the sound had never been calling from the wall. Maybe it had been trying to keep me out. If you're still here, listening this far, it means you understand that strange pull, the one that makes us seek what terrifies us. So I want you to type one word in the comments: knock. Just that. Let's see how many of us would have kept listening through the silence. When I finally stepped back from that wall, covered in dust and confusion, it felt like I'd woken something up, something that had been waiting for years to be found. The air in the room had changed. It wasn't just colder, it was heavier, thicker, almost as if the house itself had started to breathe again. I could hear faint creaks echoing through the floorboards, the kind that sound like footsteps but never quite move. I told myself it was just my imagination, but deep down I already knew that nothing about this was normal anymore. The hole I'd made wasn't just a crack in the plaster, it was an opening into something buried, something that wasn't meant to be uncovered. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph, the one of me as a child sitting next to that faceless shadow. The smile on my younger self felt wrong, like it didn't belong to me. When I finally drifted into sleep, I dreamed of that same room, only brighter, cleaner, as if it was still alive. I heard laughter, mine, echoing off the walls, and then a voice whispering my name in a tone I recognized but couldn't place. It wasn't until I woke up sweating, my sheets tangled around me, that I realized the knocking had started again. 3 slow knocks, then silence, then 2. This time, I didn't go to the wall. I sat on the floor, staring at it from a distance. The morning light crept through the blinds, cutting the room into stripes of grey, and for the first time I noticed something strange, small, circular marks along the edges of the wall, like faint imprints of hinges that had once been there. It was a door, sealed and painted over long ago. That explained the pattern, the hollow sound. But why would someone seal a room completely? What was so important or so dangerous that it had to be hidden forever? I needed answers, and the more I tried to find logic, the more questions appeared. I searched online for the history of my building. It was old, almost a century. Several owners, a few renovations, nothing too out of the ordinary. But one article caught my eye, a missing child from decades ago, last seen near this neighborhood. The report mentioned an old boarding house that once stood here before it was converted into apartments. My apartment. The description of the layout was eerily similar to mine, right down to the extra storage room that was later removed during renovation. My blood ran cold. Removed or sealed, I decided to go back inside the hidden room in daylight. Maybe I'd missed something the first time. As I stepped through the hole again, the sunlight followed me, cutting across the dust like a blade. Everything looked the same, the table, the broken mirror, the photograph. But now I noticed something else. In the corner, beneath the layer of dust, there was a faint outline on the floor. A square, like a trapdoor. I crouched down, brushing the dirt away until I saw a metal ring embedded in the wood. My hand hesitated, trembling, as I realized what it was. Another door, another secret. I pulled, but it wouldn't budge at first. It felt swollen shut with time. When it finally gave way, a rush of air escaped, thick and stale, carrying a smell of damp earth and rust. A narrow passage descended into the dark, the wooden steps vanishing into shadows. My flashlight beam shook as I pointed it down, revealing nothing but black. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Every part of me screamed not to go down there, but at the same time I couldn't leave it alone. The sound, the photograph, the feeling, they all connected somehow. And I knew deep down that whatever was hidden beneath this floor was the reason that wall had been sealed. I took a deep breath and placed one foot on the first step. The wood groaned under my weight, echoing through the tunnel below. I paused, waiting for the noise to settle, but then I heard it again, faint, almost distant, coming from below this time. That same slow rhythm. 3 knocks, then 2. My hand tightened on the flashlight, my heart pounding against my ribs. The sound wasn't waiting behind the wall anymore. It was leading me somewhere, calling me deeper. And just before I could take another step, I noticed something on the edge of the floorboard. Scratched words, barely visible under the dust. I leaned closer, brushing the surface with my fingers until I could read them clearly. 5 words, carved deep into the wood. Don't follow the knocking sound. But I was already following it. If you've ever ignored that voice in your head, the one that tells you to stop before you go too far, write the word sound in the comments. Let's see how many of us would have kept walking. I don't remember taking that first full step down the stairs. It felt like my body moved on its own, like I was being pulled by a memory I didn't know I had. The deeper I went, the colder it got. The air turned heavy, metallic, the kind of air that hasn't been breathed in decades. My flashlight flickered against the walls, revealing wooden beams swollen with age and rot. Each step groaned like it was warning me to turn back. But I couldn't. That sound, the knocking, it wasn't just noise anymore. It had rhythm, intention. It was guiding me, almost like it knew my name. At the bottom of the stairs, the space opened into a small underground room. The walls were stone, damp and uneven, and the ceiling was low enough that I had to crouch. There was an old wooden table in the center, a lantern sitting on top of it, and beside the lantern, a small box. The moment I saw it, something in me twisted. I didn't know why, but my chest felt tight, as if I'd seen that box before. My flashlight trembled as I reached out to touch it. It was carved with a symbol, 2 intersecting circles, almost like eyes. When I opened it, dust exploded into the air, and inside, wrapped in faded paper, was a stack of Polaroid photographs. My hands shook as I flipped through them. Every photo was of the same room upstairs, my bedroom, but not how it looks now. It was older, filled with different furniture. In some of the pictures there was a child standing near the wall, the same wall I'd broken open. That child was me. My heart dropped. The last photo was darker, blurred, as if taken in a rush. It showed the same scene again, except this time there was another figure standing behind me. Tall, faceless, its head tilted toward the camera. I dropped the photos and stepped back, my breath shallow. The lantern flickered slightly, even though it shouldn't have been lit at all. That's when I heard the sound again, closer now, coming from the ceiling above, from my room. 3 knocks. Pause. 2. I froze, every muscle in my body stiff. How could that be possible? I was below the floor. There was no way the noise could be coming from above unless someone else was up there. I turned off my flashlight for a second, letting my eyes adjust to the dark. The faint glow from the lantern painted the room in dull orange shadows. And then I saw movement, a reflection on the metallic edge of the box. A shadow had passed behind me. I spun around, my breath catching in my throat, but there was nothing there, just the narrow stairs leading back up. My pulse was racing so hard it hurt. I needed to leave, but something inside me said not yet. The knocking had stopped again, but in its place I heard whispering, faint, broken like a radio signal just out of tune. I couldn't understand the words, but I could feel the intent. Pleading, desperate, almost sorrowful. It was coming from behind one of the stone walls. I pressed my ear against it, and the cold seeped into my skin. That's when I realized it wasn't stone at all. It was wood, covered in layers of dirt and paint. Another wall, another room behind it. I looked around for something to pry it open, but before I could find anything, the whispering stopped. Total silence again. The kind of silence that hums in your bones. Then, slowly, one by one, the Polaroids scattered across the floor began to move. Not much, just sliding a few centimeters as if being pulled by a faint current of air. My mind screamed at me to run, to get out before something else happened, but my body refused to listen. Instead, I picked up one of the photos again. It was the one of me as a child, and this time the faceless figure wasn't standing behind me. It was closer, right beside me. I stumbled back toward the stairs, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. As I climbed, the light blinked erratically, white, then dark, white, then dark, until I reached the hole in my bedroom wall again. The smell of dust and damp air clung to me as I crawled through. Everything looked the same, yet different. The air in my room was colder now, the shadows sharper. My reflection in the mirror across the room didn't move at first. When I did, I stared, heart hammering, as it finally tilted its head just a second too late. I blinked and it was gone, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. I looked back at the hole in the wall. The darkness behind it seemed deeper than before, thicker, almost breathing. I thought I heard it again. The whisper, just one word this time. My name, faint, but clear enough to make every hair on my body stand up. And then, without warning, something small slid out from the hole and landed on the floor. It was one of the Polaroids, the same one I had left downstairs. If you've ever looked into a dark room and felt like something was looking back, type the word mirror. I'll know you've seen it too. I stood there, frozen, staring at the photo lying on my floor. The one that shouldn't be there. The same Polaroid I'd left deep underground, now resting inches from my feet, clean, untouched, like it had never gathered dust at all. My hands trembled as I picked it up, trying to convince myself that there had to be some logical explanation. But as soon as I touched it, a chill shot through me, crawling up my arm like ice water. I dropped it instinctively, my pulse hammering. That's when the lights in my apartment flickered, once, twice, before dying completely, plunging me into total darkness. The air turned heavy again, the same suffocating stillness from before, pressing against my chest. And then came the sound. 3 knocks. Pause. 2. But this time, it wasn't from the wall. It was coming from inside my room. I aimed my flashlight toward the sound, my hands shaking so violently the beam swayed across the floor, catching fragments of reality. The edge of the bed, the mirror on the dresser, the faint outline of the hole in the wall. Then I saw it, something moving in the reflection. It wasn't me. The shape was wrong, taller, thinner, the head slightly tilted, exactly like the figure in the photographs. I spun around, pointing the light toward the same spot in the room. But there was nothing there. Just the still air, the silence, and the echo of my own breathing bouncing off the walls. When I turned the flashlight back toward the mirror, the reflection was empty again. Only me now, pale, terrified, trying not to blink. My instinct screamed to leave, to run, but there was something about that mirror that pulled me closer. I walked toward it, slowly, the beam of the flashlight trembling with each breath. The closer I got, the more distorted my reflection became. My face blurred, my eyes darkened, like I was looking at an older version of myself, one that had been trapped there too long. For a second, I thought I saw the reflection move again, just a twitch, a flicker of a smile that didn't belong to me. And then, as I reached out to touch the glass, I felt warmth, not from my own hand, but from the other side. Something touched back. I stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. It hit the floor and rolled under the bed, casting wild, spinning shadows across the room. In that chaos of light and darkness, I heard a sound, faint at first, then clearer. A voice, whispering. Low, rhythmic, almost like someone humming a lullaby. It came from inside the wall again, the very one I had broken open. I crawled toward it, trying to listen, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. It wasn't just a voice. It was two, one whispering, one repeating, like an echo, slightly delayed. I pressed my ear to the edge of the hole, and for a brief moment I could make out words. "You're not supposed to be here." The room suddenly went cold, colder than before, like the warmth was being pulled out of the air. My breath fogged in front of me, each exhale quick and shallow. The whispering stopped, replaced by a faint scratching from inside the wall, steady, deliberate, like someone carving something. I grabbed the flashlight again and shone it into the hole, but the beam only reached a few feet inside before dying into black. And then I saw it. Letters forming slowly in the dust on the inside of the wall, one stroke at a time. It wasn't being written by a hand, it was just appearing as if etched by invisible fingers. The word read, "Stay." Every part of me screamed to get out, but my feet refused to move. The wall pulsed once, a faint vibration, almost like a heartbeat. My apartment door creaked softly behind me, but I didn't dare look away. I knew, without question, that if I turned around, something would be standing there. My skin prickled with that electric feeling of being watched, the kind of awareness that goes deeper than sight. My flashlight flickered again, and for half a second, I saw something inside the hole. Eyes, not glowing, not bright, but reflecting the light just enough to let me know they were there, looking right back at me. Then, as suddenly as it started, everything went still. No knocking, no whispers, just silence. But it wasn't the comforting kind. It was the kind of silence that waits. I sat on the floor, too afraid to move, clutching the flashlight so tight my knuckles turned white. That's when I noticed something strange on my wrist. A faint mark, red and curved, shaped like the edge of a hand. I didn't remember being touched. I didn't remember falling asleep. But somehow, it was there. I looked toward the wall one last time, and I swear the hole looked smaller now, like it was slowly closing itself again, sealing what should have stayed hidden. If you've ever felt that cold weight in the dark, that sense that the room itself was breathing beside you, type the word "stay." Let's see how many of us would have kept looking. The mark on my wrist wouldn't fade. I scrubbed it raw under the water, but it stayed there. Faint, almost like a bruise, shaped like fingers. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? What would I even say? That something inside my wall touched me? That I'd found a room in my house that wasn't supposed to exist? No one would believe it. I barely believed it myself. But every time I tried to convince myself it had all been some kind of hallucination, the same thing happened. The knocking returned. Always at the same time. 3 knocks, pause, 2, every single night. The strange part was, I started to expect it. I'd sit awake in the dark waiting for it, listening, almost missing it when it didn't come. Like I'd grown addicted to the fear, to that pulse of adrenaline that hit me right before the sound started. I tried recording it again, but this time the audio came out distorted, just static, no knocks, no rhythm, except when I played it backward. That's when I heard it. My own voice. Faint, whispering, "Don't open the door." I stopped sleeping after that. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Shadows that shouldn't move, reflections that didn't line up. The mirror in my room had changed somehow. Its surface wasn't smooth anymore. I noticed faint impressions beneath the glass, like something was pressing against it from the inside. I covered it with a sheet, but at night I could still see the outline of a face behind the fabric. The same tilt of the head, the same shape from the photographs. It wasn't just following me. It was learning me. It knew my rhythm, my breathing, my fear. One night I woke up to the sound of my own voice, not a dream, not a recording, my actual voice, whispering from the hole in the wall. It was saying my name, softly, patiently. I sat up slowly, every nerve in my body screaming to stay still, to not move. But curiosity, once again, betrayed me. I turned on my phone light and looked toward the hole. The sheet over the mirror was gone. The air smelled like damp soil. My voice, or whatever it was, whispered again, clearer this time. "You remember now, don't you?" And that's when the memories started to come back, not all at once, but in flashes. Me, as a child, sitting in that hidden room. A woman's voice telling me to stay inside and be quiet. The sound of footsteps upstairs, the creak of the floor, the same knocking pattern echoing through the walls. I remembered crying, asking when I could go home, and her voice again, whispering something I hadn't thought about in years. Home is the only place they can't find you. But who were they? The truth started to twist inside my mind like something too large to fit. I looked down at the mark on my wrist again, and suddenly it wasn't red anymore. It was black, a perfect outline of a handprint. My breathing turned shallow. The lights flickered once more, then died completely. My reflection in the mirror was gone. Just emptiness now. I moved closer, slowly, until I could see faint movement beneath the surface, like someone standing just on the other side of the glass. My heart pounded as a hand pressed against the inside of the mirror, the same shape as mine. And the whisper came again, but louder, echoing around the room. "You shouldn't have opened it." I stumbled backward, crashing against the wall, my flashlight spinning across the floor. It landed, pointing directly at the hole, but now it wasn't empty. There were hands inside, reaching out from the darkness, pushing against the edge, as if trying to pull the opening wider. I screamed, crawling away, but my body felt heavy, like the air had thickened around me. The sound filled the entire room, the knocking, the whispering, and something new, breathing, steady, slow, in perfect rhythm with my own. And then, in one sudden moment, everything stopped. The hands were gone. The mirror was still again. The hole looked untouched, sealed like before. For a second I thought I'd finally lost my mind, until I looked down at my floor. The Polaroids, dozens of them now, scattered everywhere. Every single one showed me, standing exactly where I was now, staring into the camera with wide, terrified eyes. And behind me, in every picture, that same shadowed figure stood closer, closer, until, in the last photo, it wasn't behind me anymore. It was over my shoulder, whispering something I could almost read on its lips. If you've ever looked at an old photo and felt like something was wrong with it, like something in the background was watching you, type the word remember. I need to know if you've seen it too. When I woke up, the world was quiet again. Too quiet. My body ached as if I'd been dragged across the floor, and a thin layer of dust clung to my clothes, the same kind that covered the hidden room. My first thought was that it had all been a dream, one of those nightmares so vivid that it bleeds into reality. But then I saw them, the Polaroids, still scattered across the floor exactly where they had been. My reflection was back in the mirror, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. My eyes looked different, distant, almost hollow, like a version of me that had seen too much. The hole in the wall was smaller now, nearly sealed, though faint whispers still pulsed from within, muffled, like someone trying to speak through layers of concrete. I should have felt safe. I should have felt relief. But instead, there was a new kind of fear. The kind that comes not from what's outside, but from the thought that maybe the horror never left. Maybe it moved inside me. I tried to leave the apartment that morning, but the door wouldn't open. The lock turned, but the handle refused to budge. I hit it, kicked it, screamed, but it didn't even shake. The air felt thick, heavy, with something invisible pressing in from all sides. The sunlight that used to pour through the blinds now felt dimmer, like it was filtering through smoke. I looked around the room. Everything felt slightly off, rearranged just enough that it didn't match my memory. Even the photos on the wall weren't the same. In one, where I'd once framed a picture of my family, there was now just an empty chair. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and the image changed again. Now the chair wasn't empty. Someone was sitting in it. The silhouette was faint, blurry, but there, watching. That was when I realized the knocking had stopped completely. For the first time in days, there was no rhythm, no sound. But the silence felt worse, like something was waiting for me to notice it. I stepped closer to the wall, running my fingers over the almost sealed crack. It pulsed faintly, warm under my touch like a heartbeat beneath the plaster. I whispered into it, barely breathing the words, "What do you want?" For a moment, there was nothing. And then, so faint I almost missed it, a voice whispered back, "You." I stumbled backward, my breath sharp, my mind racing. My reflection in the mirror smiled. I didn't. It tilted its head, the same familiar tilt I'd seen in the photographs. The lights flickered, and when they came back, there were faint handprints all over the wall, scattered like smudges of ash. I counted them. There were 5 at first, then 7, then more appearing with every blink covering the entire surface. Each one was smaller than mine, like a child's hand. That's when I remembered the missing child from the old news article, the one who vanished decades ago in this very building. My heart sank. What if the child had never left? What if they had been sealed in that room all along, their spirit trapped behind that wall, waiting for someone to open the door again? I grabbed my phone, desperate to call someone, anyone, but the screen stayed black. No signal, no light, nothing. The reflection in the dark glass of the phone screen moved again, but I wasn't moving. I threw it across the room, the crash echoing louder than it should have. Then, slowly, the knocking returned. But it wasn't the same pattern. This time, it was on the other side of the wall, the outside. It wasn't something trying to get in. It was something trying to get out. Each thud was heavier, angrier, shaking the frame of the house. Dust rained down from the ceiling. I backed away, every nerve on fire as the plaster began to crack again. My mirror started to vibrate against the wall. The sheet I'd nailed over it slipped off and fell, revealing not my reflection anymore, but that same room from before, the hidden one, lit by a dim orange glow. And in the center of it stood the figure, motionless, staring through the glass directly at me. Its head tilted, slowly, like it was curious. The knocking grew faster now, overlapping, until it sounded less like knocking and more like footsteps, coming closer. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. I just watched as a single line appeared across the mirror's surface, a thin crack that spread like a vein. Then the figure moved. It leaned forward, pressing its hand against the glass from the other side. My breath fogged the surface as I stared back, frozen, powerless. The wall behind me groaned, one last long creak, and then fell completely silent. The figure's lips moved, barely forming a word that I couldn't hear. And in the moment before everything went dark, I realized what it was saying. The same rhythm, the same pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 2. If you're still here, if you've felt that same chill crawling up your spine while listening, type the word awake. I need to know you made it through the wall.